guys, and welcome to another episode of the Hollywood Critics Association Moon Knight After Show. It is a mouthful, but we are on to episode 2. If you guys remember, last week they left us off on the crazy cliffhanger of the beautiful Moon Knight suit, and we dive more into some craziness in this episode. We're going to break it all down, but before we do, you guys, my name is Tessa Smith. You can find me everywhere at Mama's Geeky, mamasgeeky.com, Mama's Geeky on all social media, and here on YouTube. I am joined by my lovely co-hosts who you will be seeing every week as we break down all these episodes. Michael Lee, why don't you let everyone know where they can find you?
Hi, so yes, as Tessa said, I am Michael Lee. I write for Doom, That's It LA, We Live Entertainment, and The Nerd's Color. And you can find me on my socials at I am Michael J. Lee. And I did it right this time.
You got it!
It takes practice.
It does. It does.
Exactly.
Andrea, why don't you let everyone know where they can find you?
Hi, I'm Andrea. You can find me writing in Entertainment Weekly, EW.com, and also sometimes at IGN. And you can find my Twitter thoughts and lots of flailing thoughts on Moon Knight and Marvel and everything else at _8towers on Twitter.
I like you didn't even attempt to point to it. You didn't even.
Nope. See, I can't. It's there.
It's there.
It's there. I'm gonna do
Inverted.
this by the end of 6 weeks. I'm gonna know it.
Right. That'll be exactly. And then we'll be done. So It'll be just in time. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Moon Knight. Fair warning. There are spoilers. We are going to dive into every single thing about this episode. So if you have not watched it yet, just bookmark this, come back later, and don't forget to subscribe. We've got lots of after shows here on the Hollywood Critics Association channel. But let's dive into it. Moon Knight. Let's give our overall thoughts on this episode. I thought, personally, it was a good episode. It kind of drives the story forward. There's some more interesting stuff that goes on. Probably one of my, I hate using the word least favorite because I do love all of these episodes. But for me, it wasn't episode 1 and it wasn't episode 4. Which and 3 is even crazy too. Listen, this whole show is so good. But Michael Lee, how did you feel about this episode?
I felt it was a pretty interesting episode because we get to see all the dynamics at play now. We get to see more of how the internal conflicts and internal relationships that Mark has with Steven or Steven has with Mark. And then we get to see more how that relationship or that his mental health has an effect on Layla as well. So this is a really pretty interesting episode in terms of that. And then we get to see more of Harrow as well and how he operates and what his beliefs are and his philosophy towards his trying to achieve his goals, which is not so villain-like when you think of it at first, but it's pretty bad. So,
it's not great. I do.
Yeah.
It's not good. I get what you're saying. I do love that we get to dive more into Harrow and more into mental illness. It's not as action-packed as some of the other ones, but we do get some action and we do get some really cool things, especially toward the end of the episode, which we'll talk about. But Andrea, overall, how did you feel about episode 2 of Moon Knight?
I was kind of torn because, like you said, it felt a little filler to me. And like I said, like you said, I feel bad using words like filler because it makes it sound like it's boring, which it wasn't boring. You're right. It helped move the plot along a little bit. But on the other hand, we did get, like Michael was saying, we got those really interesting moments between Steven and Mark. And we really got, more of an insight into how much he's struggling to keep these two parts of himself at bay. And we also got a really big introduction to Layla, and I'm very, very excited to see more of her. So she was a big part of the episode for me, just because I'd heard a lot about her and I'd heard a lot about her performance. And so I was when she showed up, I was very happy to see more of her.
Yeah, we get a good amount of her too.
Yeah.
And we get to see her in action, which I like that she's not just kind of like a villain or damsel in distress, right? She's out there.
She takes charge. She's excuse me.
Yes, which I really,
knows
really
what
love.
to do. So yeah.
I think Marvel does a really good job with that with the women in Marvel. So I was, they continued on giving her a purpose. She's not just kind of there in the background I'm your wife. Save me. What's wrong with you? She's like, listen, buddy. I love it. All right, so let's start talking about the episode. So at the beginning, I love how Steven comes into work and they're like, someone destroyed the bathrooms. What's going on? And he's like, or they say the loo, which I love even more because it's in London. And he's like, talks to his friend there at the security. He's like, have you seen it? I got some information for you, right? This is crazy. Let me watch the security footage with you. And as they're watching the footage, you can't see the Jackal. So it just looks like he's running around like a crazy person and destroying stuff. And they're like, what is going on? And obviously when he comes out, he's not dressed as Moon Knight. They don't have security cameras in the bathroom, apparently, which I guess is a good thing. So it feels like an invasion of privacy.
Yeah.
So you didn't get to see Moon Knight, right? So they don't believe him. They're like, this guy's okay, dude. How did you feel, Michael Lee, when they were watching the security footage? Did you think we were going to get to see the Jackal? Or did you think they're definitely not going to show it?
No, I didn't think they were going to show it. And I think that's a smart play on the creator's part, because it leans into what we were talking about yesterday about not knowing what was going on between those transitions. And now we don't even see what's going on in real time. So we do see what's going on in real time, but we don't see from other people's perspective. And it's interesting to see like how it has an effect on Mark and Steven once they come out and say, hey, you don't see this? How come I'm the only one that's fighting? So yeah, it's a nice kind of psychological, mind trip sort of thing going on.
Yeah, and he starts to think like, wait, am I crazy? Like, is this real? Which it kind of happened with Harrow, but then he like talked to him and he's like, oh no, okay, Harrow's real. But now again, he's kind of starting to second guess himself again, which is one of those things I love in the psychological thriller, right? Where even the audience starts to wonder, oh, what's real, what's not real, like we were talking about yesterday. Andrea, how do you feel about them not revealing the Jackal and this whole opening scene to the episode?
I mean, I agree with Michael, and it's, I thought it was very interesting. It was a very interesting storytelling way to show, like you were saying, the difference in like, how quickly those moments can turn on and off, because when we see it, we see, Steven becoming Marg, and you see the whole transition into like, the costume and all that and what he's chasing, but like how all of that is, reflected in what we see in the real world. I thought that was, I also thought that was very interesting and a really cool perspective, because it also, like, it's kind of early on. It's still like, it's the first scene of the second episode. It really puts in place how, like how this whole story works and like what he's seeing and what we're seeing. And I thought that was, a really cool way to set it up. I also, we were talking last week about that Marvel humor, and I don't know if it's like, it's a combination of the Marvel humor and also just like my ongoing love for Oscar Isaac as Steven. But like when he's sitting there, he's like, wait, watch. Okay, no, wait. No, it's coming. No, I swear it's coming. No, watch. Wait,
change the angle.
Wait. And like every time, and you see like the security guard being like, are you okay? And I just found that like so great. It's like, wait, like you go, I swear it's coming. And it was like, and it was cracking up because it's not going to come as a viewer, and you're like, and then you feel bad, but it was like those little tiny moments.
And speaking of feeling bad, then he gets fired. And I was like, oh, Steven. And he's so nice when he gets fired. Like, he's just like, okay, yeah, I didn't nick anything. I promise. Like, they're asking if he's got anything. He's like, no, I don't. And then he sees that key to the storage unit. I think that kind of sparks his memory. Like, and obviously right after this, we see him go search for the storage unit because he's like, I need to prove to myself I'm not bonkers. Like, what's happening here? But I felt so bad for him. How did you feel when he got fired, Michael? I was so sad for him.
I was pretty, like I wanted to, like you've been saying, give Steven a hug, because
this is the Oscar Isaac Moon Knight hug channel. I'm just putting
seriously, because it just felt so bad because he's the only one that's going through this, and no one else will believe him, and he's clearly struggling, and internally. And I'm glad the security, the head of security, at least offered him some help and in another way. And other than that, it's just so awful to see what he has to go through, and it just reflects upon like the severity of the situation. So the real life situation, at least. So yeah.
I know. You just feel so bad for him, Andrea. I'm sure you wanted to give him a hug when he got
I
fired.
wanted to give him 10 hugs. If this is what I get known for
10
from this
hugs.
after show, that's totally fine. No, like, because you feel so bad for him because I feel like from like the first episode, you can tell it's coming. Like, something's going to happen with his job. Like someone is going to, make him feel bad or say they don't believe him or fire him. Like, you can just tell that's the way the story's going to go with the way, Moon Knight eventually like kind of comes to light. And so, they felt bad and it's just, it's not his fault. But he's trying to, at least he's kind of starting to figure out who he is. So, so that made me feel a little better. Like, all right, at least like you're kind of going towards a place where you might be able to figure stuff out and feel a little better rather than just going home and like sitting around and feeling bad.
Well, then too, like speaking of them offering him help, he's even looking at the brochure and he's like, they look nice. They look like they listen. And I'm like, oh, this guy just wants someone to listen to his problems. I just felt so bad for him. Oh man, let's give him all the hugs, guys.
Yeah.
But so then he goes out and he decides to find the storage unit. And when he gets to the one that it actually is at, he says he's been to a few and he's like, it could be under Stephen Grant. It could be under Mark. I don't know the last name. And you're like, this poor guy. But the guy recognizes him, brings him to his storage unit. And when he opens up his storage unit, I was not expecting it to be as big as it was and full of like a bed, and which is crazy to me. And then there's like the chest that has all this stuff in it, and it's like guns, tons of money, passport that says Mark Spector. And then he has that full conversation with himself in the reflection, which I love how they do this all throughout the series. But this was one of my favorite ones because they have that conversation where he's like, no, listen, all right, I'm going to tell you, we're an avatar, or I'm an avatar for Khonshu. So technically you're an avatar for Khonshu. And like, just let me handle this. Give me the body for a while. You could go take a nap on that cot and you'll wake up and you'll be fine. I love this scene. Michael Lee, how did you feel about this storage locker scene?
I felt it added to the complexity of, the character work. We get, again, like you were saying, we get to see two characters that inhabit the same body, and the explanations and those reactions towards Steven's reactions towards like he's an avatar. It's like, I don't understand, why am I an avatar? What does this have to do with me? Yeah. And then Mark is just like, just chill out, like you were saying, take a nap, and then I'll take control. And then once we're done, you can go about your merry way once you wake up, sort of thing. So I loved how he looked. Stephen, at least I had to name these because it's two people, but his perplexing look, his confusion, and his other state of fear, because it just adds to the whole idea of like he's out of control and he's not in control of his actions. And when he's in this kind of state of disbelief of hearing, he's not in control, it just makes things more fun and more interesting. It's just like, okay, so who's the storyteller we can really trust? Because there's two people now.
It's crazy. And again, Oscar Isaac is just so phenomenal because he truly feels like two completely different people. And to just be having these conversations with himself, it's incredible. Obviously, he would film one and then film the other, but it's just so good. And again, like we talked about, the random things that he'll see reflections in. I love how he sees the reflection in the gun in this one when it's sitting next to him. There's just all these little moments where Mark or Stephen, but the other person will find the way to just, here's a reflection. I can speak to you like, hey, listen to me. And I love that about this series. Andrea, how did you feel about the whole storage locker scene?
I thought it really, drove home how good Oscar Isaac is in this role, and how, the whole transition between Stephen and Mark. Like, I know we got a little bit of it in episode 1, and you obviously know we're going to get a lot more down the line because that's the whole point of the show is both personalities. But I really thought that this was a really good show of just like how good that those transitions are, and how good Oscar Isaac is at balancing those two personalities. And also I was very jealous of that storage locker because I'm like, if I want a storage locker, I would like one with a bed in it. And also I decided after this, I think it was this conversation, it was either this one or one that happened later in the episodes. I can't fully remember, but like, I just decided that this is my new favorite buddy comedy of the MCU is Oscar Isaac and Oscar Isaac.
Yes.
There are so many moments where he just goes, even when he's doing this, he's like, well, what do you mean? I'm not going to go like take a nap. He's like, no, just like, it's like, excuse me, what are you telling me like what to do? And like, we know it gets more intense as they get to know each other better. But yeah, I think that's like my new favorite buddy comedy.
I love it. It's so great. And then, of course,
a great way to put it.
Right?
It is. I mean, Marvel has all like they always have pairings, so I love it. This that's a good point. This might be my favorite because there's some stuff I can't even get into because I'm thinking forward to episode 4. So we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. I almost said something I shouldn't have said, but I do. It's hard, but I do love them. But then, of course, this episode switches gears and they're like, horror again. There's a hallway. So let's do the whole lights flickering and Khonshu running after you in the hallway thing again that we do so well. And I, again, love this moment. I think it's even more intense. It's like they took that part from episode 1 and we're like, here, let's make it a little more intense as he's running away. And then when he finally gets free, he runs into Layla, which I thought was great as well. But Michael Lee, how did you feel about them bringing the horror back and kind of almost the same, but a little bit different scene from the first one?
Yeah, structurally, it was very similar. You got that hall, just metal corridor, I guess, or hallway because it is storage locker. But the way the lights flickered, as you were saying, slowly at first, just to reveal Khonshu, that is he there or is he not there? And then as it starts to get more intense, you hear the music build up and you start to be like, get as scared as Steven is, because now it's Steven at that point. And it's just like, so again, it goes into the whole idea, is any of this real or not? And of course it's real. So every corner he turns, he's not, Khonshu's not there. And then another corner he turns, he's there. So it's really a lot of fun to see Marvel dive into this horror aspect that they never dove into before.
It's scary. Like I'm telling you, I jump very easily with movies anyway, like especially when the music and the score really like builds it up, which I think it does wonderfully in this scene. But like there were moments I'd be like, oh, he's there. Like I was like jumping every time. But I love it. I love seeing Marvel do this. Like you said, Michael, this is something they haven't done before. And I'm really here for it. Andrea, how did you feel about this whole scene?
Yeah, I mean, I love how they keep bringing the horror element into it. And for me, it was like, we got a bit of it in the first episode. And, we got an idea of how different this show is and the elements they were bringing to it and how it's different than a lot of other stuff that Marvel has done. So I liked that, even though there's, we started with the bit of humor and then we're doing a lot of character stuff. We had that moment where it's like, just to remind you, this is really a creepy horror, type show by showing that. And I mean, I was as scared as he was. Like, I would be terrified. And now especially like, because now that not only is he like terrified, like he was, last week, because clearly like he didn't know what was happening, but now he's even more terrified because he knows something is up. I mean, he knows enough that there's something going on, and there's the whole thing with Marg, and he found all that stuff. So now he's like even more terrified. He's like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? And he really still doesn't know what's going on. He just knows that there's something that he probably is going to get in a lot of trouble with.
Exactly. Well, and then we get Layla, which I was so excited to like really fully get her. And I love that she pulls up on a motorcycle and is like, Mark. And he's like, what's going on, Layla? And then when he's like gripping onto her, she's like, would you stop? Like, because it's just such a different, it's Steven. He's like scared. He's not used to riding around on a motorcycle. And she's so intently driving around fast and takes him to, he's like, well, she almost ditches him a couple times. She's like, just stop, I'm your wife. That's where you get the reveal that she is his wife. That is who Layla is. I thought you wanted me to track you, and that's why you turned your phone on. Drop the act. Like, what are you doing? Stop with the accent. We've lost whoever's chasing you. Like, just have a conversation with me. And he's still so lost, trying to convince yet someone else of what is going on with him, the poor guy. And they end up at his house. And then we get some really great Layla and Steven moments. But just how did you feel about Layla coming into this, Michael, and finally getting some time with her and Steven, interestingly enough?
It's nice to put a face to the name, especially since it's just, when we saw it at first, it was Layla on the phone. So it's nice, like I said, it's nice to put the face to the name. And like you were saying about the interesting dynamics at first, the way he holds her is like, don't hold me like I'm the Duchess. I'm your wife, sort of thing. You don't need to put, there's no formalities here. We know each other, sort of thing. But Steven clearly doesn't know who she is, and Layla doesn't know that this is an act, or she thinks it's an act, and he's got to stop it. So I like that whole, again, it's that whole mystery sort of thriller play, because it just, who can she trust, or can she really trust him now? Because he's putting on this act so wonderfully, and actually it's not an act for Steven. Steven's trying to convince her, like, I'm not who you say I am. And it's just so much fun to see how they bounce off each other and trying to convince, like, they are who they say they are, sort of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, and just in that short moment, just on the ride, from the storage lockers to his apartment, I really feel like it's Marvel, and it's such smart writing that they do a lot. Is they give you so much background information, enough that you need so you can piece everything together in just quick moments. And I really think they're just so good at that in pretty much every show they've done. But Andrea, how did you feel about just getting Layla and Steven?
Yeah, I mean, I was very excited when she showed up, because I'd been looking forward to her showing up and learning about her character, and I was wondering, like, when she would make an appearance, especially after we saw that phone call. And like, with only 6 episodes, I'm like, I hope they bring her in before like episode 3 or 4, like like a Sharon Carter type thing in Falcon and Winter Soldier. But one of the things that we know that Marvel does very well is they manage to cast people who always have really, really great chemistry, like no matter what character it is. And I just thought that was so apparent in our first real interaction with them, because even though they are in different places, and she's like, what the heck, you don't, and she's giving him crap, she's just giving him crap. She's like, I'm not trying to understand you. She's like, I don't understand why you're not this person. You are, to me you are. And he's confused, and he's saying, like, he's not backing down either, but he's not like kind of saying, oh, okay, I guess I am. Sure, I'll go along with you.
Right.
And so that whole interaction of them being on different levels, but still having that banter, being able to come together and kind of connect in a weird way, as opposite personalities tend to do with Marvel relationships, was really fun. And I think that scene really was good in terms of setting up, where we're going to see these 2 characters down the line, and because that she's going to stick around, and that there's going to be more of Steven and there's going to be more of Mark, and so how does she reconcile both of those? It's going to be really interesting to see.
Yeah, I love when Mark comes out, when they're in the apartment, and he starts like kind of talking to Mark, and she's like, what are you doing? And he's digging through he's like, I found this storage locker. And then wait till you see what I found. And he's digging through it, and he's about to show her the scarab, and Mark's yelling at him, don't you dare, don't show her, you're going to get her killed. And he's like, what? And he like freezes and stops, and she goes and digs through it anyway and finds it and pulls it out. Like, this thing we've been looking for, like, we've been on this adventure before, Mark. And he's just like, I love that moment. I think that's one of the great, as Andrea said, this buddy cop type thing, the 2 of them arguing with each other. Well, he's trying to pay attention to Layla, yet still yell at himself whenever he walks by a mirror or a reflection in the fish tank, Michael Lee, how did you feel just about that moment in the apartment before the police show up, which we'll talk about in a second?
Yes. I thought that was first moment we got to see Stephen actually make a connection with somebody, because as we've seen, it was saw in the first episode, he tries to go on a date, it doesn't go out successfully, and then we hear her, we see them, Layla is like, you know what, I'm just here to get you to sign these divorce papers, and he's like, you know what, I would never divorce you. He's like, oh my gosh, we get to see Stephen now wanting to have this kind of a relationship that, you know, that everyone kind of craves to be in. And it's so nice to see that kind of intimate moment from them. And it's just kind of funny how they play off each other with, like you were saying, Mark, like, don't give him any more secrets. You know, it's already gone too far. This is as far as it can go. And Stephen, it's just like, you know what? I'm in control here now. I'm going to make my own decisions and everything like that. So it's nice to see how these relationships develop in spite of, you know, all the chaos that's going on in his head.
I know. I'm like, you feel happy for him, right? Like he's finally able to talk to someone, and they're like bonding over Egyptian stuff, and he's like, "Look, you know your stuff, you know." And she's like, "Yeah, okay, Mark, like stop, drop the act, you know. Here's the divorce papers." No, I love it, Andrea. How do you feel about that scene in the apartment?
I loved it. I mean, also that to go along with the, you know, Marvel ladies take no crap. Like she's, you know, he's trying not to show stuff to her, and she literally is like, "What, this thing? Like, I'm gonna just come and take it out. Like, what? You're trying to hide this?" Like, she's not like, "Oh, okay, I'll just let you your thing." So I love that. You know, and I think, you know, like Michael was saying, it's just fun to see, to like kind of continually see the odds of these two characters going back and forth with each other, and really like now that I'm kind of reflecting on it, like having seen the episode, reflecting on kind of their interactions, they really, I think, do help each other kind of like come into their own as people. Like, you know, I think there's a lot that Stephen, like when Stephen says stuff, you know, Mark doesn't necessarily take it to heart right away, but like it's clearly affecting him. And the same thing with Stephen, because you see that moment where he's going to be like, just ignore Mark and show her the scarab, and then, you know, he's not, because he realizes, like, for whatever reason, either he listens to him or he's just kind of caught off guard, you know. So I do think like I really like those little moments where we can see them kind of starting to kind of rub off on each other a little bit, or kind of realizing, I guess a better way to put this is they kind of realizing they have to work together, which we'll talk about more down the line when we get more to the end, as we get further into the episode. But
yeah, absolutely. And then, so this part, I loved this part because like these police show up, right? And they're banging on the door, and he's like, the museum said they weren't going to press charges. They're looking all around the apartment. They're talking, "Oh, you've got this passport with somebody else's name. Like, looks like we're going to have to take you in." I was immediately suspicious of these people because I was like, the museum was so nice. And they're like, "We're going to send you to doctors." And now police are showing up. It made no sense to me why police would be there. And I immediately thought these have to be people working with Harrow, because we already know Harrow has all these like cult people, is the best way to call it, followers. And I immediately was suspicious of these people. Michael Lee, did you think they were police when they first showed up?
I had to think that they weren't actually who they say they were, because, you know, given how you were saying Harrow's reach is so extensive, you know, one of the security guards, which we saw that, you know, they were in there, could have just informed police, "Hey, you know, you got this character who's, you know, just kind of should be on our radar. You know, he could have something that Harrow wants." So yeah, immediately I was like saying, yeah, they're in on the whole idea of, or in on the plan at least. So yeah.
Yeah, it was too, like, it didn't make sense to me why police would just show up all of a sudden. Andrea, did you believe that they were police, or what did you think?
No, I was like, you are not, there's something fishy here. But also like kind of along the same lines, like, you know that Harrow's real, you know, he's not like a dream like he thought. And he, you know, those people that he, you know, that follow him are real. And he clearly has, you know, he clearly has an influence on people. So, and you knew he was going to play a bigger, obviously he's going to play a really big role, and, and he still hadn't shown up in the episode. So when they, showed up, like my first thought was they have to be connected to him, even if it's not malicious, like even if they're not there to like, kill him or whatever, maybe they just want to bring him in. They just want to like, capture him or bring him, to Harrow or whatever. I was like, they're definitely working with him because also what does the museum have to, why does the museum care? Like,
they fired him.
Steal anything. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. I know. And then you just feel bad for him because he's so nice. Like, he's like, okay, like he just goes with them kind of like he doesn't cause a fight. He's just such a nice guy. You're just like, yeah, now you want to hug him. Like, oh, pat him on the head. Like, you're so cute. Like, I'm so sorry. You're so innocent. And then he has that moment where he's just talking to them in the car, like, what's going on? And they pull up to this like compound, right, of Harrow's, for lack of a better word. And I love this scene. I love how they end up bringing him out. They leave him in there alone and leave the walkie-talkie or whatever radio on so that they can hear him talking to himself to figure out where his mindset is, which I found very interesting until he's like, they kind of explain to him like, listen, Mark Spector did this. He's a mercenary. He killed all these people. Like, look at what he did to the architects. And Steven ends up having this conversation with Mark with I think he's in the window, reflection in the window of the car. And he says, I'm never going to let you out. And that's when they're like, oh, okay, great. Perfect. All right. Harrow takes him out, uncuffs him, talks to him like, all right, we just need to see where your head was at. I thought that was a very interesting way to kind of trick Steven into letting him know where he was at. And then as the whole compound scene goes on, which we'll dive into, you really learn a lot more about Harrow. And Harrow says he used to be the avatar for Khonshu. And I think that's where he really had started to figure that out, I imagine, when he did the scales on Steven. And I thought it was a very interesting way to trap him, to kind of, because he knows what that struggle is like. So he was waiting to see, what side he's on, and felt like he could manipulate Steven. I think that's why he let him out. Michael, how did you feel about this whole like arriving at the compound and the way that Harrow sort of tricked Steven into letting him know where his mental state was?
I thought it was a pretty smart idea how they executed it, especially kind of infusing a little bit of horror elements, because at first you hear him talk to himself and you're just right into this, and all of a sudden you hear a soccer ball just smash right into the window. It's like, all right, there's this horror element, kind of scary, catching off guard sort of thing. But going into what you were saying about introducing Harrow, I really liked how this sort of expands upon the mythology and everything. Like, there's a history with Khonshu. Khonshu is, he knows Khonshu. He clearly knows Khonshu, because he's saying, is Khonshu telling you to do this, and Khonshu telling you to do that? Because don't listen to him. He always throws a tantrum, sort of thing. And but at the same time, we hear Khonshu saying like, I only exact justice because this is my motivation, sort of thing. And it's fun to see that interplay, and Steven trying to comprehend what's going on. It's like, is any of this real? I mean, this looks like a nice place, sort of thing, because everyone is working to help each other, and they learn 3 languages. They feed each other. They always the crime rates are down. So there's clearly a nice a benefit, I guess, to following Harrow at first, so when you see it, but when you start to get deeper into Harrow's mindset and understanding, it's just like, no, you know what, I don't want any part of this. And Steven starts to understand, like, okay, you may know Khonshu, but I think I have a better idea of who he is. So, yeah.
I love when he's just like, wait, so would you kill children? You guys are all okay with that? He like looks around. He's like, because they might do something in the future, which gives me like comic book Civil War II vibes. If you guys have read that storyline, if you haven't, read it, because I think it's really good, even though people don't like it, but I like it personally. But it gives me that thought. Minority Report too, right? Like, it's all that, like, would you
prediction? Yeah,
kill someone because they might do something in the future. And I love that we kind of got into that, and how Steven was like, this is not okay. And then Mark's like talking to him in the bowl. And it's like, don't give up Layla. And there's like all this stuff going on. And I'm like, props to Steven for staying like on track as to what he's trying to accomplish here. Andrea, how did you feel about the compound, them tricking him into figuring out where his mental state is and all of that whole scene?
I thought it was a very good way to show the real chaos that is this show, especially when, Harrow finally shows him, the life, so to speak. And and he's seeing everyone, but he's also dealing, and he's trying to comprehend that. He's trying to comprehend what Harrow's telling him about being his avatar, and he's trying to understand about, where Layla fits in. And then Mark is there in every reflection saying, don't give Layla up. Like, what are you doing? Don't talk to him. Like, this is, and like you were saying, like, props to Steven for really keeping it together when we know he's the type of person who's like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, so
down,
good for him. Cause I think that really, like I said, it felt like it really highlighted just how chaotic, this story is and what Steven is really dealing with, which obviously helps us understand character better. And I also love that they, the fact that they tricked him from a storytelling standpoint and from a just like a fun, just from like a narrative standpoint and a fan standpoint, I guess, because it was fun for us to watch and really, see, kind of that. See, at anytime we get any of those interactions, I love it between Mark and Steven. And then to use it as a storytelling device to have Harrow be like, okay, like this is what we're dealing with. And like the audience then knows what we're dealing with because we get a sense of like how, intense this relationship can be and how intense Mark can be. And maybe we shouldn't let him out. I mean, we saw what happened last time. So I really love that whole scene.
Yeah. And then also laying the breadcrumbs. I didn't mention this. So that scene, where they tell,
right,
oh, this is what Mark did. Every little thing is important story-wise. That's what I'll say. Pay attention to all the things that are going on. But then at this point, Layla shows up. And I love that she just showed up, right? Again, talking about her just not caring and just being like, well, this is who I am. This is what I'm going to do. She shows up. She's like, you want this thing with the scarab? And then she's yelling at him like, call the suit. And he's like, what? She's like, summon the suit. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, he has no clue. And I think that's when she finally starts to realize. And I think that's the first time she call him, she's like, Steven. And she calls him Steven, which I love that moment. And then let's just talk about Layla showing up in that action before we get to Steven calling the suit, because that hands down my favorite part of the episode. But Michael, how did you feel just kind of about all that action and Layla showing up and actually calling him Steven and recognizing that maybe it's not Mark?
Yeah. So I guess it's in that moment where he can't summon the suit and he starts to break down. It's like, you know what? He's in fear for his life, and she starts to see that this is his moment, that he needs somebody to recognize him as who he is, as Steven. That was kind of the nicest thing about this interaction, because now she recognizes that this is a serious case of the mental health that he struggles with. And what I love how she says, all right, Steven, and she's nurturing, she's very caring and kind, and it just speaks to the idea of how she has to interact with Mark, and how she has to interact with Steven in order to get to Mark, sort of thing. So, but in that action sequence, as soon as it transitions to the action sequence, I just was thinking, I need that suit, kind of. I need the tailor, or I need Conchu's tailor.
Yes.
To get the Psycho Colonel Sanders suit, because that's one sharp suit. And I love how there are different power sets to this thing, because it provides a kind of fun and unique play on the two personalities inhabiting this one body. One has a Batman kind of suit, and the other has, I don't know what I compare
it's Mr. Knight is what it's called, right? So it's fancy.
It's a very nice fancy suit. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that when he showed up and he landed, and that's when he was landed and did that superhero landing, which is the best.
Yeah.
And you get the Jackal running after him. He's like, you said a suit. Like, this is where Steven's mind goes to. I just love it. Andrea, what did you think about Layla coming in? the whole action scene, and then of course Mr. Knight showing up finally.
I love that we got that little quiet moment between, because it was a huge action scene and, you know, there's so much going on, and there's been so much going on this whole episode just in terms of like reveals and, you know, chaos, like, you know, personalities and all that stuff. And then we get this really quiet, like nice moment between Layla and, you know, Steven, where she's realizing, I have to, like, you know, I have to, even if I don't know what's going on, even if I don't believe this is really, you know, not Mark, I have to do something, because otherwise we're both going to be in really big trouble. And, you know, and she appeals to him in that way. And obviously, you know, that's what he needs. You know, he needs that someone to kind of get on his level and, you know, get him into that headspace that will allow him to calm the suit, because Mark yelling at him is not going to be enough. And I thought that was a really nice moment to have that little quiet character moment between them, that will obviously like inform their relationship down the line, and also show kind of how they were. You know, when they started, she was like, I don't know who this guy is. I don't want anything to do with you. And then she's like, all right, like, I guess I'm in this for the long haul. So might as well pretend at least, or something, that you're someone that I want to get to know, because I would like not to die today. But when he landed, you know, when he turned in the suit, that it was just everything. And like you said, when he was like, what, like, you know, call the suit. And, you know,
Yeah.
it's like, that's what my mind went to. And you can almost hear Mark like face palming and saying, God, out of all the people to like share a body with, I got him the one that, you know, can't think of like a super suit. But I love, and I also love the fact that, you know, the first episode we got the real, you know, superhero Moon Knight suit, and this we got the Mr. Knight suit. So right off the bat we got the two big cool superhero reveals, which is great storytelling wise, because, you know, sometimes these shows can be a little slow getting started, and, you know, sometimes we don't get stuff till like the third or fourth episode, and there's only 6 episodes. So I'm glad that they threw us into that at least in the first like 2 hours or 45 minutes, whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was glad that because there is a lot of like development, story development, world building, background building in this episode. So it was nice to end on an action scene, and you get the little bit of action, you get the sweet moment, then we get the suit reveal, and you're like, oh man, they're just giving it all to us. And then we've got this fight with the Jackal, which I really love how this one was done, because it's not just Steven/Mark and the Jackal. So we can't see the Jackal this time. You kind of see it sometimes, but not really. Layla like throws something at it, and you can kind of see it because it's out in the public. So they're giving us it from the perspective of the other people who are watching, which I found very interesting. Also probably due to budget, but hey, it works. Michael Lee, how did you feel about this whole action scene? And then it ends with Steven giving up to Mark and letting Mark come in with his actual Moon Knight suit, which that was really cool to see it change from Mr. Knight to Moon Knight. But Michael, how did you feel about that whole action part?
I felt that the action part was a nice way to introduce us again to the whole mindset, because in the opening scenes of the episode, again, we see that nobody else sees it. Nobody else understands what Mark or Steven is going through. But now we get to see, in this episode, we get to really see what other people are seeing, as you were saying, that, you know, is he crazy? Is he drunk? No, he's, you know, he's like twitching out, sort of thing. So it's just nice to finally have an understanding of what Mark and Steven have to go through, with the fact that no one else can see what he's fighting, and for Layla to actually understand now by throwing that bottle, seeing you know, all that liquid you know, kind of cover him, saying, oh, this is real. What Mark is going through is, it's not fake, and it just adds to the whole that whole mystery thriller again, and saying, or psychological thriller aspect. So yeah.
And then when he picks her up and she's like dangling in the air, I was like, this is crazy. I thought it was so cool, the way they did all that stuff. Andrea, how did you feel about it? And I think they call him a fancy drunk. Isn't that what the person says? That's
I think
a fancy
so,
drunk.
yeah.
A fancy drunk, yes.
I love that. I mean, like we were saying before, I love how they show the different perspectives, how, they show it from the perspective of people like us who wouldn't be able to see that, but we know, what they're dealing with. And it's a nice, it's a nice balance between, not just showing us the CGI superhero stuff because like that's what we're always going to see, but showing just how insane and chaotic this fight is, the battle, the fight between Stephen and Mark is, the Jackal, and it was just everything about this show and every scene and every kind of action moment like that is so well done and so well put together, and really it draws you into the action, and it sets up so much, and I loved when at the end he was finally like, okay, like whatever, you take control, because what's going to happen as soon as Mark takes control, and Mark is never going to want to give that body back too, so you're like he's like, nope, once you like give me, once you fully tell me I can do this, cool, like I'm just gonna stay in here for as long as I can, and that's not gonna end well. So that was kind of like okay, well, we'll see where this goes moment.
Yeah, because I love that part, because after he takes care of the Jackal, he's like talking to himself in like broken, is it like a clock or a mirror, whatever it is, he's yelling at himself, and he's like, I'm not like, something has changed. Used to be like easier to lose control, but now whoever's in charge of the body is more powerful. So like, I'm not letting you out, Stephen. And Stephen's like, what is going on? And then he runs off to Egypt, and that's how it ends, which is crazy. He's like, where we're going. He goes to Egypt because he's going to track down the tomb, because obviously Harrow's got the scarab now. I mean, it's just, it's crazy how we went from the beginning of this episode to like poor Stephen getting fired and trying to like look at this Jackal to like now Mark's in control. Stephen's the one who's shoved to the back of the mind. Michael, how did you feel about just this interaction of him just literally telling himself like, you're not getting the body back until I'm done with what I'm trying to do?
I felt that it really took that dynamic into a darker place, because Mark and was telling Stephen, used to be in control. There always used to be a wall, and now I'm getting a better understanding of how this shared body relationship works. And Stephen is just like, what? Why am I getting he's getting fired basically from his job.
He is.
He's getting fired. He's like, what? I'm going to be in control. You're not doing your job, basically. So I'm going to be the host. And yeah, so that's how I felt about this episode, about that interaction, because it's so nice to see how Mark is now taking control and saying, because things aren't going as they planned. And Mark repeatedly was telling Stephen, give me the body, it will be done. Then you can have your life. And now we get to see the result of what happens when Stephen doesn't listen, I guess. So yeah. That's great.
Man, that whole part when he's even like, I never was able to have friends. I couldn't go on dates. Right. Like, this was all you. It was all your fault. Like, he's figuring it out. He's putting all the pieces together. And you're just, again, I just want to give him a hug. And now he's trapped in reflections. This poor guy. Andrea, how did you feel about that whole interaction and then ending the episode in Egypt?
I know. I just want to give him a hug. I mean, it's, I do hope, like, by the end of this, by the time we get to, like, the 6th episode, we really, get to see a change in Stephen having, gone through this, and hopefully will, because I think, like, for him, I feel like this has got to be so overwhelming for him to realize, like, oh wait, like, this is why I've been having all those issues. This is why my life has been, like, I'm socially awkward anyway, but this is why my life is, like, not really been great in terms of, finding connection and all that. And again, you know, it really highlights the difference between, you know, Mark and Stephen, and how different they are, how much they take control of things. I kind of had a hunch when he said, like, oh, we're going like place. Like, I mean, I figured they would probably end up in Egypt because I felt like that was coming at some point, but it was still, you know, it was still really cool to hear, like, you hear the music, you see him getting out of bed, and you just see him, like, you know, he's there, and you're like, okay, like this is how we're going to kick off the next episode, which was really cool.
my friend, I'll give her a shout out, Amy from As the Bunny Hops, when people were asking just for social reactions to the episodes, she said, all you need to know is Oscar Isaac is in his underwear at the end of episode 2. And that tweet blew up, and I was like, well, I mean, it's true. He's in his underwear.
It's not a lie. It's not a lie. We get a nice little pan. Like, we start out panning his underwear. I'm not like...
It's
not
not
saying anything that's not true, Marvel.
I know. It's a scene. It's a lengthy-ish scene for an underwear scene. Right? But then that's how they end. And you're like, what is going to happen? Now, going back to the first episode, because this is something that just hit my mind that we didn't talk about. I want to know you guys' theories. Like, Stephen is continuously calling his mom and leaving messages. Like, does his mom dead? Does she exist? Who is he calling? He can't really be calling his mom, right?
Yeah.
Something's got to be going on there. I don't know. It makes me feel bad for him even more.
Well, I don't know. I wonder if that's going to be like a reveal down the line, or maybe he was calling Layla without like knowing it, but I doubt it, because otherwise she would be like,
why are you calling me?
Yeah.
Yeah. In this episode, Layla was like, oh, you're talking to your mom again, sort of thing. So that's interesting how the mom is off screen. We never actually hear her voice as well. It's always Stephen conversing to a phone, which we don't know is on or
I feel like
the other line. So,
I don't know if that's just more of like really showing like the kind of mental illness, but you know, the mental health thing that they're trying to really drive home, or if it's going to be someone like he's unknowingly talking to someone that maybe he's talking to Mel. I don't know. I was going to say maybe he's talking to Mark, but that makes no sense either. I don't know. I can't do Marvel theories because
I know
it warps my head.
I have a guess, but that's more in the later episodes. So
okay.
So we'll come back to it. We'll come back to it.
Hopefully I remember it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All right, guys. Well, as we wrap up this episode, let's go with our favorite moments of the episode. I'm saying it first before anybody else can steal it. It's the Mr. Knight reveal. I love that suit, and I thought it was so much fun how they did it. That was my favorite part of the episode, although the episode it gives you a lot of good stuff. Michael, what was your favorite part of this episode?
I would have to say, following up with that, it is the Mr. Knight episode, but when he's fighting the Jackal, especially when he's just like getting his confidence, getting into his groove, like, you know, float like a butterfly, sing like a bee. My name is Stephen with a V. It was just like so much fun to see him just like getting into his own place, getting into like, you know, I'm in the suit, I can fight now, I have super strength. So it was fun and so funny just to be just to see him getting into that. I'm a superhero now. So
yeah, it's so nice. It's like, yay, something's going good for Stephen real quick before he's shoved in the body and we never see him. You know, he's stuck in the reflection again. But Andrea, what's your favorite moment from episode 2?
Well, since you took my Mr. Knight moment, it's okay. I really loved going back to that storage locker moment with Stephen and Mark. The first time we because I feel like that's the first time we kind of really see them like go at odds with each other, or really have a lengthy like kind of conversation between like that shows how different their personalities are. And I love that just because I thought it was such a great way to kind of give us an introduction to these characters and how, you know, how much of a close connection they're going to have. And if I had to follow it up with a second favorite moment, I would say Oscar Isaac in his underwear, because
there you go.
You can't lie. You can't lie.
Right. Exactly.
No,
I'm a simple person.
Can't lie at all.
Right. It's just very simple. That's all I need. You can just be in his underwear the whole rest of the season and we're good. Cheaper, right? Cheaper,
right?
The budget. Yeah. So. Well, you guys watching, let us know your favorite part in the comments. Before we go, Michael, why don't you let everyone know again where they can find you?
So I am Michael Lee. You can find my writing at That's in LA. We Live Entertainment, Geeks of Doom, and There's a Color. And on all my socials, I got it right this time. And I am Michael J. Lee.
And Andrea?
You can find me writing in Entertainment Weekly. You can find me writing in IGN, and you can find me on Twitter at @ATowers. And I will see. I'm not going to attempt to do it.
The left hand.
Right there. Right there.
I know. It's hard.
It's only the second week, guys. It's okay.
I know. Maybe by next week. My name is Tessa.
I'm going to practice.
Exactly. You guys can find me everywhere at Mama's Geeky, mamasgeeky.com, Mama's Geeky on all social media, and here on YouTube. But thanks for joining us, guys. Again, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell because we have a ton of after shows of pretty much any show you watch. We're going to have an after show for it, and we will see you guys next week for Moon Knight, episode 3.